Hello and welcome to The Point. I'm Marcel Wieder. Today on this edition of The Point, after a contentious leadership battle, Ontario's Progressive Conservative Party has elected its new leader. John Mykytyshn is one of the key figures that helped power Patrick Brown to the head of the party. He sits down with me to discuss the race and the future of the Ontario PC Party. And with school out, students are now looking for jobs, both part-time and permanent. What are their prospects? Mark Patterson, Executive Director of Magnet, tells us what his program is doing to improve their chances of getting a job. All that and more on this edition of The Point. Patrick Brown is the new leader of the Ontario PC Party. Though he had only the support of 5 members of the caucus, Brown still managed a convincing victory over Christine Elliott by almost 2-1. Now he faces the challenge of proving to his caucus that he's fit to lead. We're joined by John Mykytyshn, one of the key figures behind Brown's successful campaign. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Few people would have given the 36-year-old MP from Barrie much of a chance of winning at the beginning of the campaign about 8 months ago. And yet, on May the 9th, he pulled out a remarkable, convincing victory over Christine Elliott by almost 2-1. What was the game plan that your team employed to deliver the win?
I think your premise is accurate, and I think that was part of the strategy, was that very few people were aware of the talent that Patrick was and is, or the breadth of support that he had at the grassroots level, just inherently on his own. And really, he was an unknown quantity for people who he was able to use that to his advantage, and that they didn't see him coming.
Well, you talk about an unknown quantity, yet he was I believe, 2-term councillor in Barrie, and then a 3-term member of federal parliament in Ottawa. Yet he was never appointed by the Prime Minister as a parliamentary assistant, a chair of a significant committee. Doesn't that reflect on the type of person that he is?
It reflects on the breadth of talent that Prime Minister Harper has on his benches. There's a tremendous amount of talent there, and as you know, a lot of the work is done at the committee level and behind the scenes. Although all the cabinet ministers are great and committee chairs are nice, the reality is there's hundreds and thousands of hours that are done by average members of Parliament, and they're all quite exceptional people. And I think one of the things the pundits have been blindsided by is the degree to which that's true.
But if you check the Hansard, I don't recall Patrick bringing out any even private members bill in his 10 years in Ottawa.
Right, and I think you go to, again, the pundits and the scribes, their criteria for coming to the conclusions that they did clearly has shown how it's been faulty logic from the beginning to use the criteria they used to ascertain whether or not he had a chance at successfully becoming the leader.
Mm-hmm. Now, during the campaign, Christine Elliott was clearly the choice of the establishment. She had 19 of the MPPs in the caucus of 28 supporting her. Patrick only had 5, and the rest were the interim leader and convention chairs, etc. So clearly, caucus by a 4-1 margin supported Elliott. How were you able to overcome that advantage?
Well, I think it's by not placing too much weight on it. Certainly, any endorsement from any profile individual is something that everyone would want. Patrick, for example, for the first time in history, got the endorsement of Wayne Gretzky, one of Canada's most renowned sports figures, to endorse him. Something quite unusual. And it speaks to the depth of Patrick's character and his experience. So he correctly surmised that a Wayne Gretzky endorsement might be much more meaningful than a member of an opposition party in the legislature. So leaderships are about breadth, they're about depth, they're about new memberships, and Patrick's himself and his team went after real live people rather than elites.
So that raises the question that the Brown campaign seems to have taken a page from the Obama campaign. And in 2008, when President Obama was a candidate, he felt that he couldn't lock in the party establishment that was going with Hillary Clinton at the time. And so as a result, his campaign looked at expanding the pie, create more members, and thereby dilute the influence of the establishment. Did that factor into the Brown campaign?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think what you do if you're a smart strategist or smart candidate is what you do is when you set out to win is look at how you can do that, and you take every advantage. So from Christine's perspective, she had widespread caucus support, which was great for her. But I think what happened there was they overrated the significance of it, and there was some degree of complacency, whereas Patrick knew from the very beginning that for him to be able to win, he had to grow the party beyond any comfortable measure that anybody had ever done before. So I think the largest membership sales in the past have been around, well, for example, last time, Hudak, I think, submitted around 15,000. Lots of numbers, but I think the acknowledged one that Christine submitted this time was 17,000. Mm-hmm. So for Patrick to submit over 40,000 clearly showed that not only did he have a plan to go far beyond the existing base, but to reach out to communities, and you see from the results that he reached out from communities from every single corner of the province. And the only way that that's possible on election day is to set that out as the goal from the beginning.
Monty McNaughton, who was a leadership candidate and who dropped out and supported Brown, put out a missive just before voting described Christine Elliott as Christine Elliott Trudeau, described her as a big pink tent, and said some rather evocative points. Mm-hmm. How is that going to bring about the cohesion that you're talking about?
Well, I think in any leadership campaign, the same as any nomination campaign, you play hard out, you play with your heart, and sometimes things might be said or you might go further than you'd like to go. That might be brought about by reacting to things that the other campaign has said.
Like what? What triggered that letter from McNaughton?
I can't speak to that because I haven't talked to Monty about that. But suffice to say that everybody needs to reach out now. And during a campaign, you don't necessarily do that. You might think that you're okay with the support you have, and you don't need the support of other people. And what Patrick has shown is that by getting the support across the province of everyone, virtually everyone, he's got an absolute unqualified historical win by the margin that he won by, that he appealed to people that the people and ridings to a degree and a depth that nobody saw coming. And to go to that point, his message is the one that's resonated with party members, and I think everyone moving forward will follow his lead as far as working together.
Well, working together, yet at yesterday's legislative session, Christine Elliott was a no-show.
Right.
And so if you're trying to build bridges and put the team together, one of the other key players is not participating. How does that work?
I think that's reading too much into it. I mean, I certainly, I was in the legislature and I looked down and I saw some members of the government were missing as well, and you wouldn't make that mean anything about the Conservative leadership race. I think the reality...
Well, that it was just 2 days ago that the race took place.
Well, and certainly after a year-long race and following a very tough election for us, Christine, I'm sure, is taking some time to think and to heal and to get ready for what's next, which is being part of a party and part of a caucus that prepares to take government on.
Now, both the NDP and Liberals are rubbing their hands with glee, saying, Patrick Brown is a social conservative. He's been, quoted as willing to reopen the issue of abortion federally. The campaign life gave him an outstanding review, and so they think that that's the type of approach that he'll bring to Ontario. So how is that going to square with rebuilding the party?
Well, I think that the first thing is to tell people to stop reading the Toronto Star and reading an accurate newspaper. In the Toronto Sun this morning, I believe, I'm not sure it was reporters or the editorial board, met with Patrick, and he clearly answered those questions, and he said those issues have been dealt with. He's not reopening them. He's not a social conservative, so he's quite clearly stated what his position is on these issues and who he is as a conservative. He describes himself as a pragmatic conservative. But
What's a pragmatic conservative?
But hang on, be clear. Haters got to hate, and the Liberals are going to do that, and they're going to say things and twist things and make things up that don't exist. If they want to talk about his record, they want to actually talk about what he said and answer these questions, then they'll stop spreading untruths, if they're capable of doing that.
So during this campaign, there was very little, if any, policy released by the Brown campaign. What is a pragmatic conservative that you just described, and what are some of his campaign ideas?
So two things about that. You raise a good point that seems to be a problem for many people in the media. After the election loss, our party went through a very, led by our party president, Richard Chano, a very intensive soul searching. I think they had 12 or 13 sessions across Ontario. I attended 6 of them. And it was fascinating because most of the candidates that did run and many people who considered running went to those sessions and listened. And what they heard across the province at every one of these meetings was party policy should not be made by a half dozen people behind closed doors. They wanted an open policy process. They wanted a party process that was inclusive, that included grassroots members. So to go from that clear will of the party grassroots into a leadership contest where you have candidates then saying, this will be the policy if you elect me, is not a route that Patrick chose to follow. He decided that what he wanted to do was to honor the wishes of the party rank and file and to be open to policies and to come up with a party policy process that would be inclusive and extensive.
Your party has suffered through 4 straight election defeats and now have gone through 3 leaders. What is the prospect for the future of the party?
I think it's very, very bright. I have to tell you that I've been around during that entire time and for a little while before that, and I've seen many leaderships, provincially, federally, governments and politicians come and go. And Patrick's a long-term friend. I mean, I knew him when he was just starting out in the party, and I can tell you that I'm actually very excited. I'm excited for him, I'm excited for the party, and I'm excited for Ontario. One of the things I learned in this campaign was there were so many different groups out there across Ontario that never felt part of the political process, that Patrick has a deep and personal tie with, and they're included, and they're excited about him, and I think the next election is going to be something like we've never seen before.
John, thank you for joining us. Up next, Mark Patterson from Magnet joins us to talk about an innovative job matching program. A 2013 study by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives pegged youth unemployment rate between 16 and 17%, nearly twice the adult unemployment rate. In some communities, it is over 20%. Magnet is an innovative partnership between Ryerson University and the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. The program works to pair youth, new Canadians, and persons with disabilities with meaningful employment. Here for more is Executive Director of Magnet, Mark Patterson. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Marcel.
So Mark, tell us about this innovative program that's out of Ryerson University in cooperation with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, well, we had a really unique startup being incubated at Ryerson's Digital Media Zone, which is an incubator on our campus that we saw a lot of potential with. And we really saw potential in helping connect our graduates at Ryerson to employment and other opportunities more effectively, something we're very interested in, obviously. So we started with Ryerson, and we had a lot of success, and so we've launched it outside of Ryerson. So it's taking an innovative technology, building a social project around it. Personally, and the university, we're very interested in addressing youth unemployment and underemployment and some of the issues that are coming out of that.
So give us the nuts and bolts of how Magnet works.
Yeah, so an individual affiliated with any organization, so we work with a lot of not-for-profit organizations in the province, can build a profile. So if you think LinkedIn, for
Mm-hmm.
example, that's an online profile. Many people have LinkedIn, Facebook, and other social profiles. A couple of differences here. One, the profiles are private, and two, we collect the information in a way that we can do really detailed matching. So private profiles affiliated with an organization or not-for-profit, in this example, Ryerson University, and that gives us really deep insight into our student population. So I'll give you an example. At one time, employers may have called me and said, Mark, how many fourth-year accounting students that speak Mandarin or Hindi do you have? And it
Mm-hmm.
would have been hard for me to answer that. Now,
Right.
with a large number of our students building really detailed profiles, we're not only able to answer that question for employers, but be able to connect them really quickly.
So it started out at Ryerson University, but you've indicated that it's now expanded into other areas.
Yeah, we actually have not only Ryerson University, but also 28 other post-secondary institutions in the province of Ontario. Institutions like Western and George Brown and Fanshawe College,
Mm-hmm.
Northern College, Loyalist, and many others. So they're partnering with us in the post-secondary sector. And we're also expanding beyond that. So many professional associations are joining, and also we're starting to pilot with some high schools as well. So what we're really trying to do is break down the silos. I'll give you one example. In Ontario alone, for an employer to find somebody from a post-secondary institution, they would typically have to post separately at each institution. So that takes a lot of time and effort to post the same
I know I've
job
done that.
over,
It's, you know,
exactly,
it's a
over and
lot of
over.
work and a lot of
Yeah.
interviews and everything.
So with this system, not only can they post across all of those institutions that are partnered and
Mm-hmm.
working together, but they can find the right people immediately within it. So they can see the talent pool that exists with exactly the skills and qualifications that they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for. So we all hear about jobs without people, people without jobs, and ask ourselves why that's happening. We think it's a communication issue. So by working together, breaking down some of the silos, we think we can address that.
So how many people have gone through this job matching program through Magnet?
We have 60,000, just under 60,000 post-secondary students in Ontario, which, having started just in September, we think that's a great result.
Mm-hmm.
And it's expanding rapidly, like I said. So we're seeing hundreds and hundreds of sign-ups every day now.
Mm-hmm. And as an employer, how much does it cost for me to access Magnet?
So it's free for post-secondary institutions. So an employer can come in, post a job for free across all of the post-secondary institutions. And then if they want to do really advanced targeted hiring, there can be a small connection fee, but that's only for more experienced hires. So, and it's free to post. So this is, I want to make sure it's clear, it's absolutely free to post. We show a redacted profile of the candidates that have applied, and then the employer chooses whether they want to connect or not. If they choose to connect, they pay a small fee, and we actually share that fee with all the not-for-profit partners.
Oh, interesting. And for the students or people who are putting their profile on, is there any charge for them?
Absolutely free, and what we're really excited about is the future potential there to actually inform individuals, because we have details about all the jobs that are being posted, and we have a detailed information about their profile. We're starting to be able to do some really interesting analysis. So I used to have, as a career counselor, people come to me and say, Mark, you know, should I do this designation? Should I do that certification? And it would always be a process of trying to investigate what are the job opportunities that are open that are looking for that. And we're starting to be able to do that type of analysis actually in the system. The other big challenge we know that is an issue in the province is mobility. So we may have clusters of talent in one area of Ontario that are needed in another, and they're just not connecting. So we're starting to be able to show people as well, if you were looking for that type of job in a different city in Ontario, then you might have more results or have more luck.
So how did the partnership between Ryerson and the Ontario Chamber of Commerce come together?
You know, that's an amazing question. I would actually say that I believe if we're going to solve some of these issues in the province of Ontario, it's going to take collaboration across a lot of different stakeholder groups, not-for-profits, professional associations, business, government, and so on. So the OCC was an obvious partner for us. If you read their platform, Emerging Stronger, which they've had for the last number of years, they talk about the importance for addressing the skills gap in Ontario. So if you were to talk to people from the Chamber of Commerce, one of the things they're hearing all the time from their members, their employer members, is how difficult it is to find the talent to drive their business success. And we're sitting on the other side and saying, well, we have a lot of great talent and students. What's going on here? why are they not connecting? And so we really started to address it, and we think this technology can help us. So the other really exciting thing that one wouldn't see from the surface of this is that we're actually tracking. So if you think about, if we have a lot of people with detailed profiles on the supply side, and we're having a lot of employers posting jobs on the demand side, if we track that in real time, we actually start to see real-time labor market information. And we can create that real-time labor market information not only for Ryerson, but maybe for all of our partners, all of our post-secondary partners, and aggregate it up until it becomes really valuable to the province for a public policy perspective. But the Chamber, for sure, an amazing partner. It aligns very clearly with their priorities of helping employers find talent to drive the economy, and it's been a great partnership.
Now, you're focused on post-secondary as being part of Ryerson, so you naturally have that focus. But I understand that there's also opening it up to new Canadians, to people with disabilities, people with hard to find employment. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so again, I worked as a director of career services for a number of years and did a lot of frontline career counseling. And you really start to see some of the challenges that people face, particularly if they have something that creates a barrier to employment. So whether it's a disability, being new to the country, or other groups that have been traditionally marginalized. It really impacts you when you're dealing with people on the front line. And it's also, when you look at it from an economic standpoint for the province, it's really a tremendous loss of labor and human capital that we need to figure out how to work with. So we have some really interesting technology. One of the issues we've all been hearing about, for example, the business case for hiring persons with disabilities. It's not only the right thing to do, there's actually a really strong business case that's very evident from the research. So, but one of the challenges we hear, again, from employers is, how do we find people? So how do I find somebody with a disability, perhaps, that has the skills and qualifications that I'm looking for? I'm an employer that's open to helping accommodate that type of employment situation, but I can't find somebody. So one of the things we're doing with this platform will actually be able to allow employers to come in and, in a very proactive way, target people that have the skills or qualifications, but also might have a barrier. So for employers that are seeking to engage some of our most marginalized groups, we can really help them. And I think that's really, really important for the whole province. We spend a tremendous amount of money supporting people who really have a strong desire to work and can really give back to our economy and really help our province. And I think we just need to find a better way of connecting.
Thank you, Mark. I was joined by Mark Patterson, Executive Director of Magnet. We'll be back with The Point. The Ontario PCs have a new leader. Patrick Brown, the former MP from Barrie, trounced establishment candidate Christine Elliott in convincing fashion on the 9th of May. At the beginning of the race, few would give the 36-year-old bachelor any chance of winning. Yet with dogged determination, he spent the last 6 months traveling the province spreading his message. What that message is, we don't really know. For Brown, who has been in politics since his teenage years, didn't publish any extensive policy platform. What he told Conservatives was that the old way wasn't working and that he was prepared to do things different to break the 4 consecutive losses the party has endured to the ruling Liberals. Brown, who has served as a city councillor in Barrie and federal MP for 3 terms, has no experience in Ontario politics and doesn't have a seat in the Ontario legislature. That doesn't appear to bother him. Having wrestled control of the party from the establishment, it will be interesting to see how he will perform. We got a glimpse of that recently when Premier Wynne extended an invitation to Brown to attend and bring greetings to the legislature on the occasion of Quebec Premier Couillard's visit. Brown chose to use the opportunity to go on the attack against Wynne and the Liberals in front of invited guests and MPPs. It appears that he is employing the same hyper-partisan approach that Stephen Harper and his Conservatives Party employ in Ottawa. Time will tell if that approach will serve him well. But if the new leader wants to gain the confidence of Ontarians, he will have to lay out a well-thought-out platform that addresses the concerns of Ontarians, including job creation, building a stronger and more inclusive economy, and ensuring a brighter future for the next generation. And that's the point. That's all for this edition of The Point. Follow us on Twitter at Watch The Point. Like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. I'm Marcel Wieder. We'll see you again soon.